always allowed artists to actually just be artists.
Particularly because of the aesthetic of the space. It kind of has this like castle on a hill vibration. There's a little bit of magic there.
Stripes are really low.
Welcome to my Harlem portraits. As you can see, today we are going to talk about Harlem stage. We saw a brief presentation in the beginning, and we are here with the Director of Programming for Harlem Stage, Monique Martin. Welcome to the show, Monique.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My first time, my debut. I hope it's not my last.
Oh, really? Okay, no, it's not going to be your last. Absolutely not. So Monique is nothing less than the Director of Programming, as I said, for Harlem Stage. Before that, she was the Programming Director for Summer Stage with the City Park Foundation, and she was there for 10 years. Mm-hmm. Before that, she was the Associate Director of Programming for Lower Manhattan Cultural Council, and it was part of the River to River Festival. Previously, as an independent curator and producer and marketing consultant, she was in partnership and she produced it with Joyce Pub, with Disney Theatrical, with the Apollo Theater, with New Victory Theater, with Hip Hop Theater Festival, with HBO, and in various Broadway and off-Broadway productions. So my compliments, because it's a very beautiful curriculum.
Thank you.
You have been on the national and international advisory committees in boards and panels, something like, they include, for example, the Association of Performing Arts Presenters, the International Society for the Performing Arts, the Ford Foundation, and the Department of Cultural Affairs, and FC Harlem Lions and Women of Color in the Arts, and this is just a few. So, in seeing your career, it is quite clear that your passion is to promote understanding and collaboration among cultures and sectors and different genres. Mm-hmm. You want to facilitate this exchange between culture. So this is the perfect program to be at. And I can see that this passion has guided you all through your career and in your choices. For example, when you work at City Parks, you presented more than 1,200 programs, which were multi-genre programs, and that was for each year. And this reached about 600,000 people in the audience, and this was both in Central Park and in more than 100 parks citywide. So tell me a little bit about that experience. That must have been pretty interesting.
One of the values of Summer Stage and my time with Summer Stage, particularly being from California, not being a New Yorker, the festival takes place, the main stage is in Central Park, as many people know. And many people think that Summer Stage is just in Central Park, but really the heart and mission and vision of the organization is to bring culture to communities across the 5 boroughs. So I have had the pleasure and honor to understand the cultures across New York City, and New York City is an international city. Absolutely. And it also is such a range. I mean, even if you're on the subway, you can be in one car and hear 5 different languages being spoken, and those languages are attached to culture. And so the vibrancy of this city is so rich, and the cultural literacy is high, so you can throw almost anything at New Yorkers and they will receive it, or they'll rebuke it and let you know. So Summer Stage gave me a broad and deep understanding of the pulse of this city.
And you were collaborating when you were doing this thing with many different nationalities. You were in contact with different embassies and consulates to bring acts from those countries also.
Yes, and a lot of colleagues, that's an excellent point, because every embassy and cultural consulate wants their culture to be exported. And so they will support their artists, and we found a lot of success with collaborating with the Swedish consulate. The French Institute is one, and the French Institute is one that they now have a priority to connect with their Francophone communities in the Caribbean and in Africa. And they realize that those artists haven't been served as much as their French nationals. And we're looking forward to having some of the artists from Africa, dance artists, and there's an incredible dance coming out of the continent, and that will be supported by the French Institute.
Fantastic. Because I see that you have collaborated with many, many institutions, and you know that I worked for all my life, 28 years in European Union. I was in European Parliament. So for me, this being international is part of my DNA. I love it. And when I saw what you were doing, I said, oh, this is fantastic.
And you know, as a global citizen, that the world is looking at New York, and they're looking at the U.S., and particularly at New York. And so we have a responsibility to showcase our cultures here in the city, and also introduce other cultures, because if you're third generation, you may not have a direct connection to where your grandparents came from. And so that's the opportunity, is to really connect the New Yorkers to the globe by bringing artists here. And also one of the priorities that I have is looking at how do we collaborate across cultures. So if there's an artist here that wants to collaborate with someone from Haiti, or someone from Marseille, or someone from wherever, then to me that's quite interesting as well, is you get to learn about other cultures, and artists love to collaborate.
And you do that a lot at Harlem Stage.
We're introducing our first international artists next month. So really excited about that. One of the biggest MCs out of Scandinavia, whose parents are actually, his father's from Harlem and his mother's from Pennsylvania. They met in Harlem. His father's African American, that his family migrated from South Carolina, and the mother is Caucasian from Pennsylvania. They met in Harlem in the early 60s, and they left Harlem in 1969 to travel to Sweden for free education and, you know, free health care and all the things that that country and many other countries value. And they never look back. And so Jason is their Swedish child who, when one of his cousins brought a mixtape from Brooklyn to Sweden, it changed his life. And he is one of the biggest.
Go back to his roots.
Yeah. Well, what he didn't even know was his roots, actually, because his parents didn't keep that connection. They said, let America go. We're now. Right, and he found it. It found him.
Yes.
And Timbuktu is his MC name, and he's, you know, as I said, one of the biggest MCs out of Scandinavia, and he wanted to write his story. After he had already been a chart topper musician, he felt like it was important to tell his unique story. Most of the people of color in Sweden are from Somalia or from Ethiopia, so you don't have someone who has that African American Great Migration story. And he wrote a book. And when he had the book launch for the Swedish version of the book, Marcus Samuelsson hosted it. Of course, they're friends.
I was going to say Marcus Samuelsson.
Yes, absolutely. So
because
Marcus
Sweden is 4 or 6
this big. It's like Brooklyn,
people.
right? And he, well, Sweden is.
It's
I mean,
big,
right?
but
Stockholm is small.
The people are small.
Right.
The people are very. I lived in Stockholm 2 years.
Oh
so,
wow!
yes.
So right, because it's like Stockholm is down here, and then the rest of the country, but it's sparse up there.
Yeah.
So Marcus planted the seed. He said, if you're going to do a book reading, you should do it with a band because you're a musician. So he connected them with the Rakeem Walker Project, which if you ever go to Red Rooster on a Monday night, it is on and popping. That
yes.
band is fierce.
That's my favorite band.
Yeah, so they're the band for the show. And it was Marcus who planted the seed, and that is how the play evolved. And so it was sold out in Sweden in 2018, and we are now debuting it here in New York at Harlem Stage.
Wonderful, fantastic. I'm going to be there for that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, because I love all of them. And tell me a little bit also about Harlem Stage, because Harlem Stage has been there for 35 years. And not only it supports classical presentation or classical pieces from Harlem and from the African diaspora, but also supports new and upcoming artists, and it helps them. So that's one important objective and what you do at Harlem Stage. So tell me a little bit about
Absolutely. Many people don't know that the DNA of Harlem Stage is commissioning artists to create new work and supporting them and advancing their vision. So Harlem Stage has Waterworks is the name of the commissioning program. We also have, and that's for a big project. So as you saw in the clip with Michelle Ndegoncello, she was the last artist that was commissioned for a Waterworks project, and they usually take about 3 years. So you have an idea, and then it's a developmental process. When do you bring in the director? Who's your dramaturge? What's, you worked on something for a couple of months, and then that's not working. So you need to go back in. And a lot of artists of color don't have the resources or the opportunity or the support to create new work. And so they're gigging and they have opportunities to perform. But where's that special idea that you have and you want to bring it forward? And that's what Harlem Stage, even before it was Harlem Stage, when it was Aaron Davis Hall, has done for over 30 years. And
I didn't know that Harlem Stage was
yes.
Aaron Davis Hall.
Yes, so the institution moved to the Gatehouse in 2004. Prior to that, it was Aaron Davis Hall.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I'm learning. I'm always learning something. It's important. I love it. And I didn't know that you are specifically commissioning work of new artists and supporting that. That's fundamental. That's fantastic, because very, very few institutions do that.
And it's a heavy lift. It's a heavy
I'm
lift
sure.
so the artists that are, so Michelle is someone who found great success as a musician, but she never created a project that was a play that had a run. It ran for, I think they did 10 performances. It was before I arrived. That premiered in December of 2016. And, again, that was a 3-year project. Stu is another one. That's a project with, he had, prior to Michelle, the Negro Problem, and Jason is our next Waterworks project.
Fantastic.
Yes.
This is fantastic.
So I wanted to just add to that. Sure, you have someone like Michelle, that's a big project that took 3 years. And then we also have smaller grants that help you get to a little further down the road, but it may not necessarily support the entire project, because some artists need more time to then go back into the lab. So we have funding for emerging artists, and we also have funding for established artists.
So, this is very important. How do artists apply for that?
They should reach out to Harlem Stage and give us a shout. What is your idea? You can go through the website and let us know. We don't know everything that's happening out here, so it's important for
Get in touch with you?
Yeah, or if you know of an artist that has a project that we may not be aware of. I mean, I look at Instagram. I find artists on Instagram, not necessarily for commissioning, but just that's the age that we're in right now.
Yes.
That's where we are, so
Absolutely.
to look at, to depend on an agent or a manager, that's for presenting.
Yes.
Not for commissioning. So for commissioning, you need to speak to the artist directly and to
Absolutely.
understand, where do
Absolutely.
you want to take this project. And I have one artist that we're talking to now that is a dancer, and he's always wanted to work with a chamber orchestra, but he doesn't have a real connection to a chamber orchestra. So now I'm connecting him, and I love doing that. I love connecting artists who may not know each other or who want to take a risk. He's a hip hop dancer, and he said he wanted to do something with the chamber orchestra, so that's going to be quite
That
exciting.
sounds very interesting.
So that's what we do. That's what we're up to.
You do a lot of that. I love that because it's really a place where you experiment a lot, which is something that I wasn't used to see before. It was more New York, and especially Harlem, was more classic things. But now it's really changing. The last 4 or 5 years, I've seen a lot of changes, and Harlem Stage is one of those places where you see the most avant-garde, I would say, together with the new Apollo
Sure.
direction. The
Sure.
most avant-garde stuff, and also the
National Black Theater.
exactly
Right.
National
No,
Black Theater.
Harlem is popping. Harlem
really-
definitely.
yeah.
There's a lot of innovation happening. When Studio Museum comes back online, they also have been doing some incredible programming with their
Yes.
public programs. So we all are talking now as well to see how can we as a geographic community connect. And to commission is expensive. It's a heavy lift. So we are in conversation with how can Harlem Stage put a little in, and then the Apollo can do a little, and if maybe you have a visual artist, there's a lot of incredible digital art that's happening now, so we can't do traditional visual arts, but we can do digital art. And so where are those opportunities, and where's the innovation happening? To your point about classic Harlem, that's jazz, that's some of the traditional art forms that Harlem is known for, and then a lot of artists would have to go downtown or go to some of the venues in Brooklyn to do something edgy or experimental, and we now Harlem now is ready for that, and I'm
Harlem
really excited.
is amazing. I love Harlem. I love what's going on. Now you are coming into a very interesting spring programming, which has two main focuses. One is the 100th anniversary of the Harlem Renaissance, and the other one is Afrofuturism.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about both. And explain also what Afrofuturism is, really, because many people don't know what it is.
That's true. And Afrofuturism is still defining itself, and a lot of people have their ideas of what it is. I wish I could quote Nona Hendricks,
Hendricks.
who is our artistic director for this year-long celebration of Afrofuturism. So we've done film, we have had conversation, and it stems from Sun Ra, who was the godfather.
Saw him in Copenhagen.
What?
Oh my God.
Wow,
The
you're
Sun Ra
lucky.
Orchestra. It was incredible. I saw him
Wow.
a couple of times.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just saw the orchestra a year and a half ago at Iridium, and I was blown away. I mean, those capes, the hats, the sound, the amount of people. There's like 25 people in the
Yes,
band.
yes.
People can't afford to do that now, but they're committed. They're still touring, and one of the original members, Marshall Allen, he's 95 years old,
Yep.
still on tour. He just performed with Lakeisha Benjamin, who's, in her 30s and trying to hang with him. So we have to honor and connect our legends and our icons with the younger generation that's coming up, and find where's their synergy. So it started with Sun Ra, and Sun Ra, who saw himself as from Mars, and someone that is bringing consciousness and Black excellence, to your point earlier, to to the planet. And so he had his devotees, Now you have artists like Janelle Monáe, who considers herself Afrofuturist, and Solange. So there's a movement around. I think of Afrofuturism as radical imagination, the radical Black imagination. I look at Harriet Tubman as an Afrofuturist. She saw herself as free when everything else said, no, you're not. That's futurism, is seeing yourself beyond your current situation or identity, and how do you show that through the music is something that we're really excited about exploring. And Nona has a lot of incredible collaborators and vision around it. And even if you think about LaBelle, that was Afrofuturism.
Yes. At the time, definitely it was.
You
It
know,
was
the
before their
costumes, the
time.
outfits,
all
the
those-
sound.
All those people who are before their time
Yeah.
and have that imagination that others consider, what is this? This is
Strange.
crazy. What's going on? Yes, that's what it is. And Nona definitely belongs to that kind of people
Yes.
and performance. So the show I saw at Harlem Stage was very beautiful with Nona. Was really, really interesting.
Which one? Was that the one in December with
Yes.
More Mother and Rashida Phillips? Another. Nona's connected. One of the beautiful things about what she brings is she's connected to what's happening now.
Yeah.
So she defines Afrofuturism is the past, the present, and the future,
future.
all at the same time. We're always toggling through different time spaces.
Connecting the past with the present and going already into the future and bringing it all together.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in the one that you did at the Metropolitan Museum.
That is quite exciting because it's taking place in the Temple of Dindor, which already is magical and spirited. So to bring Nona and Craig Harris and Francesca Harper, beautiful choreographer, and also a visual artist, Virgil Ortiz, who is indigenous out of New Mexico, and he creates these incredible headpieces, and he looks at Afrofuturism through an indigenous lens. So he has a whole series on archers that were blinded because they were so skilled in archery that they were blinded, and they still became masterful. So he has this beautiful series of headpieces with these they almost look like superhero. So he's bringing the Afrofuturism from an indigenous lens.
And what else can you tell us about the Emove dance? For example.
Emoves is our annual dance festival, and this season we are focusing on women choreographers, and that connects to the centennial of the Harlem Renaissance. So for the first week, Alyssa Monte Dance is bringing a piece that celebrates 3 women from the Harlem Renaissance. So it's a dance theater piece, and there are some women that are lesser known. We wanted to do that. A lot of folks know about Langston Hughes and Zora Neale Hurston. We know some of the prominent figures of the Harlem Renaissance, but there are a lot of unknowns. So that is happening. And we also are connecting it to the centennial of women's right to vote. So all the women choreographers are inspired and moving their pieces through those 2 lenses, the Harlem Renaissance and the women's right to vote. And so it's the first time that it'll be all women choreographers. So
That is very, very
girl power.
important.
All they need is a platform.
Exactly.
And that's what we look to
you
provide.
are giving an amazing platform because, as we saw, the atmosphere is magical.
It's
in
one of the
Harlem
most
stage.
beautiful spaces
Yes.
in New York, and I'm not saying that just because I work there. But
No,
even
it
before I
is,
did,
it is.
you know, it's a gorgeous building that was built in the mid 1800s, and it's been preserved beautifully.
And it was a water.
It was part of the Croton Aqueduct water system that still is flowing.
It is, no, it's a beautiful, magical place. let's talk about the spring gala for the
The
moment.
annual Spring Gala is happening on Monday, May 18th. We are going with the theme of Afrofuturism. Jose James is our artist,
Oh,
and
wow.
there's a lot of special guests that I can't mention right now.
Okay.
But
It's a secret for the moment.
Yeah, it's going to be incredible. And we also are honoring, we always do an emerging artist. And this year, one of our honorees is a new board member, LaChance, who is a Broadway diva.
Yes.
And her daughter now is starring in Jagged Little Pill. So she
Oh,
will be
wow.
our emerging artist. So
That is fantastic.
yeah, so it's really incredible to have a mother-daughter being celebrated at this special time, and we have lots of other surprises. So that's May 18th. We have a Pride program. We have a program with chamber music that we collaborate with and partner, and also Carnegie Hall with Maurice Mobetta Brown,
Oh.
who is incredible
And when is
trumpeter. That one is on May 13th.
May
Yeah, so we have a
13th.
lot in the spring that's coming up, and you
Yes.
can find everything on our website at harlemstage.org.
harlemstage.org. If you can give an advice to emerging artists, what would you say to them, and how would you give them an encouragement word?
I would say don't be safe, take risk, put together your wolf pack. You need a tribe. No one can do it alone. Many artists want to be the star, makeup, hair, costume designer, director, and get a team. And if you don't have those relationships, we'll help you. Ask for help. There's so many resources out here to support artists, and particularly artists of color that are doing social justice work, that are looking at how art and activism work together. There are many resources out there, and Harlem Stage is one of them.
Unfortunately, we are really at the end of the program. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for telling us about Harlem Stage, which is a really important institution. If you don't know it, go and check it out and see their programs there. They're really amazing. And thank you for being with us with My Harlem Portraits. I'm Maria Grazia Cavenaghi, and I've been your host. I always forget to tell my name. And 12:30 next Saturday. Bye-bye.